It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. You can also listen to him on the Best Coast Boys podcast. And on that Best Coast Boys podcast, you can listen to the other co-host, John Owning, who will be joining us today to talk about some free safety prospects for the Dallas Cowboys. John, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Can't complain. Got a nice workout this morning. Even got to go to the grocery store, get all my errands done for the day before work, man. I'm productive as heck today, so I'm happy.
All right,
knocking it out early is good. It's always good to get it done early, right?
Yes, exactly. We're going to talk about some day two safeties. I don't know, maybe one of you guys are bold enough to call one of these three safeties that we're going to talk about a day one safety. I doubt it. But we have a feeling that the Cowboys are going to be hunting safeties in the second day of the draft. And there's some names that we're going to look at. The first one I want to start with is Richie Grant, the safety from UCF, who, I mean, if you're a longtime listener to the show, you know how much that we love Richie Grant. John, you are our guest. Tell us about Richie Grant, what you like and maybe what you don't like.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Richie Grant. I think he's probably the most well-rounded safety in this entire class. I think his ability to function as a single high safety, his ability to function in the slot, his ability to function in the box just gives him a really well-rounded game that he could fit in a variety of schemes, especially the scheme that the Cowboys run. He's ferocious in his downhill run fits, I think, to the point where I almost get afraid that he's going to hurt himself half the time when he's throwing his body into the wreckage to stop the run or even, a screen or what have you. I think he has good instincts in single high, really nice range. That one interception I always post on my Twitter where he ranges from the opposite hash mark all the way to the other side to get the interception is one of the more impressive single high safety plays in this class, I think. He's just really well-rounded. Anything that you really need him to do, I think that he can really function as that guy in that role for you. He's a little bit old. I think he's going to be 24 when the season begins. So that gives you a little bit of pause about his future viability, 10 years, something down the line. But I love him. He's probably going to end up being my safety one in this class. I think, like I said, he could do so many different things. At the Senior Bowl, I was just so impressed with his ability to function in the slot against receiver types. I saw on film that you saw him be able to match up against tight ends really well, match up with running backs really well. But at the Senior Bowl, he really showed that he can function against really high-end route runners, guys like Josh Palmer from Tennessee, one-on-one in coverage. And I think that just sold me flat out. I was already a big fan of his entering that week, and that just sold me on him being probably the best safety in this class.
Lando?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything John said is correct. I mean, I think I totally agree as well that his tape was impressive, but the Senior Bowl practice tape is really what put him over the top for me. I think he's a high floor player. That's where I think I really value him the most, is because I think he's one of the guys that, one of the few guys in this class that you could, draft. And I feel like you could start right away. He has a lot of experience. He has a lot of versatility. He's one of the rare players at the safety position that has some ball hawking aspects to his game and is also a really solid tackler. I mean, he had 10% of his team's tackle share in 2020, which is really hot, which is really good. And only had 8% broken tackle rate, which is also really good. So he's a solid player who can make plays. He's shown that he can play in the single high role if he needs to. He can come down and make tackles. He can play in man coverage. Really the only thing I worry about is, and kind of John mentioned it, is that, where's his ceiling from here? Like how much better can he get than he is right now? But I think he can come in right away with his processing ability and that initial burst, and immediately you could plug him in as a single safety high player and feel pretty comfortable about that.
All right, so am I allowed to be the wet blanket here? I mean, I
Please.
know Listen, I like Richie Grant quite a bit. And if he's the pick at 44, I'll be so happy because I think he's a fantastic player. I do think there are some things that have me a little bit concerned in relation to these other two safeties we're going to talk about, right? He's a little smaller than you would typically like your safeties, right? I think he's sub 200 pounds. He's under 6 foot. On top of that, he didn't test as like the best athlete in the world. And that's not the most important thing when it comes to evaluating safeties because instincts matter and your ability to recognize routes and diagnose stuff is far more important. But when you're a little on the smaller side and not overly athletic, and you come from a non-Power 5 conference, and you are a senior coming out, it's enough concerns for me to knock him from like being the 25th prospect in the draft to the 35th. Does that make sense?
I will just add that if he was in a Power 5 conference, then he would be a former national champion from his 2018 club. They probably would have gotten a little more justice and a little bit more hardware. I definitely agree with that, and I'll let John kind of address that as well. But to me, I think the thing I like about him is that he may not test as an elite athlete, but the athleticism that I see on tape is what I see in his testing too, right? He has very good 3-cone, and you match that with his processing speed. And that, that makes up for a lot of the lack of straight line speed because he can get the jump on things. He sees things early. And because of that ability to drop his hips and change direction, it really allows for a lot of margin for error for a lot of that stuff. But I mean, to be fair, he is undersized and he is a tick slow. I just think that when you see the tape and the rest of his testing, at least it matches up with what you see on tape. And I think you know what you're getting.
Yeah, I think Landon really hit on the main point there, and just his processing speed, his ability to make plus breaks on passes, to be able to break on the ball before the QB lets go of the ball from his hand. And he does that routinely on tape, and that allows him to play a step faster than maybe somebody who runs a little bit better over 40, who is a little bit more explosive, or who is a little bit bigger, who can contest the catch point maybe at a higher point. He's getting there earlier because of his processing speed. And for a safety, like Marcus was even saying before, that is the key. You got to have a guy that anticipates. He has a quick processor and the ability to make plays on the ball. That is the key for safeties. And I think those are honestly his best traits. He kind of, like Marcus was saying, has those middling physical traits, but all those traits that don't appear in the testing, I think that he has in spades.
Yeah, so we're all in agreement here. If he is the pick in the second round for the Dallas Cowboys at number 44, we're all thrilled, right?
Love it. Love
100%.
it.
Okay, good. So one guy that we agree on, I'm curious to see about the next two because I've got a feeling we might have some differing opinions. But before we do that, let's take a quick break so I can tell you guys about Bet Online, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Football might be over, but we've got NBA, we've got NHL, MLB, and golf in full swing. Bet Online even covers awards, TV shows, and reality TV with real-time updated props on almost anything you can imagine. BetOnline has you covered for all the news, scores, and odds. It's the best way to place your bets, and it's free to sign up. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. All you have to do is use the promo code LOCKEDON. That's BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, let's talk about another safety. This one who opted out of the 2020 season. That's Javon Holland from Oregon, somebody who is very, very intriguing, tested as a much better athlete than I think anybody anticipated. John, we'll start with you again. What did you think about Holland on film?
Man, it was really interesting. Going in, I didn't really know what to expect just based on everything I've read and what I heard. Yesterday, I went through 7 games of his. I went through 3 in 2018, 4 in 2019. And I was honestly pretty impressed with him. I think in 2018, he played a lot more free safety. You saw him get a lot of run, especially in the Stanford, Washington State, and Washington games. He played a lot of free safety. And I think you saw him show that he can function in that role in the NFL. You see the good instincts. He takes away the post. He takes away the seam. I don't think he's the rangiest free safety in the world, but between those hashes, I think he gets the job done. He's really smart. He's not afraid to fill against the run. He's not afraid to tackle, all of those things. I think that really gave me a lot of confidence that if he was picked by a team like the Cowboys, he could function in a single high role. And then when you move on to the 2019 tape, you see him play a lot more in the slot, around or more around the box, that kind of nickel safety role he was playing in that Oregon defense. And I was just super, super impressed by his ability to anticipate routes. He's not the most explosive guy. You'll see guys separate from him when he kind of has to make flat foot reads and they break in front of him. He doesn't really close that gap really very quickly when they're coming out of their breaks. But better than any other probably defensive back I've seen in this class outside of like a Patrick Surtain, the really high-end cornerbacks, is he anticipates routes. He's already anticipating that break, and that allows him to really stay connected to these intermediate routes against slot receivers and tight ends. I think he has the ability to match up with tight ends, running backs. I think if he's in the box, he's a very, very adept intermediate zone dropper. I think he could be a hook defender. I think he could play in the buzz. I think he could play vertical third. I think he could do a lot of things, and his versatility, I think, in a Dan Quinn defense would give them a lot of flexibility to be able to change up their looks while playing the same defense. I think that is the key for a Dan Quinn, this cover 3 Carroll style defense is if you're going to be playing a similar coverage, that cover 3 a lot, you got to be able to move the chess pieces around the board a lot so that the offense, even though you're running the same coverage, it looks like you're running something different. And I think a guy like Javon Holland with his versatility really unlocks that potential for a Cowboys defense. I was really impressed by him.
Landon?
I'm not as impressed. I definitely think that I saw the same things, a lot of the same things that John saw. I mean, there was a focus at free safety in 2018, and the Stanford tape is one that I watched as well for him there. And I think, to me, I watch him and I have concerns that his game doesn't match his body type. Right. Like I think he is more of I think he could probably play free safety, but I'm not comfortable putting him there immediately, I think, and having him start right away. I think you could see him there in instances and have him play in that role a little bit. But to me, I would feel much more comfortable playing him in an overhang role, in a box role. I mean, look, we constantly but just point out that JOK played more snaps at nickel corner or at slot than he did at linebacker. Sure. And Holland's kind of the same thing, except at safety. Holland played way more snaps as a slot corner than he did as a safety, and I don't think he can play slot corner in the NFL. So it's, to me, my concern with Holland is that it's a lot of projection. You're projecting him to play. I mean, you've seen him play a single safety high, and I think he was good, not great at it. But the tape that is making your eyes get big about this kid, it's not in that single high safety role. It's more as an overhang defender and more as a box defender. I think he's great. John mentioned this. I think he's great at covering tight ends. I think he has the potential to be a tight end eraser type. I think he kind of can struggle at times with some of those quicker wide receivers because he moves, if he was a running back, I would describe his movement style as like a slasher as opposed to a bursty guy, and I think that kind of can limit some of this stuff on the back end, kind of in the way that I mentioned with Richie Grant having a quick processor and quick change of direction. I don't know that Holland, I think Holland has the processor, but I don't know that he has that change of direction. So I would prefer to kind of keep him in the box a little bit and play that role. But then again, what really complicates this is that he had a great pro day. His pro day is he's at 6 foot 207. He doesn't look 207 on tape. He ran a 4.46 in the 40. He doesn't look like he plays at 4.46. So I have concerns that I think he has gotten to be a better athlete over the last year without not playing football. I think clearly he's kept up and been training really hard for the draft. But I just have a lot of concerns because, to me, that the times in this pro day don't match necessarily what I see on tape, and I'm worried that his skill set, the things that he does well, doesn't quite match his body type. That he may be kind of undersized a little bit to play in a full-time kind of overhang box defending safety role.
To me, this reminds me a little bit of a player that we talked about a lot last year, Xavier McKinney, coming out of Alabama, right? Who played a lot in that same, near the line of scrimmage, sometimes was, covering slot receivers. But we had questions if McKinney was a free safety. I think I feel better about Holland than I do somebody like McKinney being able to do that, because when we saw him play in the Pac-12, he was 18 and 19 years old. Again, he was incredibly young. He was very productive. I believe he has the most interceptions in Oregon history outside of Jarius Byrd. So you're banking on him being a pretty inexperienced player and having the instincts and being, having all that athleticism that didn't necessarily show up on tape. So I think the ascending player, but without a doubt, there's projection here. I could easily see him 2 years from now being a high-end safety. But I think there's a chance that he is somebody who, is a little bit of a tweener, and he goes to a team that really can't find him a role, and he bounces around the league. That wouldn't surprise me either. So, John, let's come back to you. Where do you kind of slot Holland in this draft? Is he somebody that you like in the second round? Is he more of a third-round guy? Where do you have him?
I gave him a solid 2, and I'm really a solid second-round grade. And I think that I'm really betting on the fact that he's a high IQ player who has good size, obvious, good tested athleticism, better tested athleticism than I think play speed that we saw on tape. Yeah. And his ball skills, I think that's one thing that we haven't touched on yet is his ball skills. Yeah. He plays the ball really well in the air. He was a high school receiver. You could see it with the way that he's one of the only safeties or one of the only really defensive backs in this class that I've seen really be able to attack the flash of the ball. So say they get their eyes turned to the QB late, he's able to locate the ball and still get a hand on it. A lot of other safeties, when they turn their head around late, they lose the ball. They can't find it. He has that ability because I'm guessing from his years playing receiver where you have to get your eyes back and catch the flash of the ball just like that. That skill translates to the defensive side of the ball. And when you have all that mixture of a high IQ guy who showed that he has tested athleticism, guy who has ball skills, I'm going to bet on that. And I think even if he's not going to function the best as a single high safety for like the Cowboys or something, I think he'll find a place where he'll be successful. I just think he's too smart. You see, one really good thing I see is anytime you see an opposing team going in a bunch or a stack alignment, count the number of times where you see him even question what receiver he's going to have. He always relates to the proper receiver. You don't see him get confused by these crazy route combinations that you can get from these spread teams when they're a bunch and stacked alignments, when they condense these sets. He's so smart that I just think he's going to be able to figure out. And the fact that, like Marcus said, he was 18 or 19 in doing that. Yeah. What about when he's going to be 23, 24, 25, 26 in the NFL? I think he's just going to be one of those guys that sees things quicker, sees things better, processes things better than a lot of different people. And I think that's going to allow him to be successful, even if we don't know the exact position that he's going to be successful in the NFL.
Landon?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a second rounder too. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that
you killed him, and now you're calling him a second rounder.
No, I'm killing him because I'm playing the opposite side of John. But I'll tell you, like, I mean, all the things that John mentioned are right. I mean, I don't disagree with the fact he's a ball hawk. I mean, if you go watch his 2018, he's a freshman and he's directing traffic on these guys. And Oregon defensive backs are legit, and he's guiding them, lining them up, making sure they're lined up. So clearly he has the abilities. I think if anything, my only concern is that I don't think he will play a lot of the same role that he played in college. I think there is a projection to the NFL, but I think all the things that John said is right. He has all the makeup of everything that you want for a safety. I just have concerns, if missing last year, the testing not matching the tape. What does he look like as an athlete now? Is he a completely different player? Those are all questions I have in my head that are really the only thing that eliminating him from being kind of a solid first round pick, because he has that upside. He definitely has the upside that if he can get it all together with his smarts and he has this kind of athleticism that he tested with, he definitely has the upside to be the best safety in this class if everything comes together for him.
Yeah. One thing, Marcus, before you jump in, I went to a Glazier clinic at the beginning of 2019 in Las Vegas, and the UNLV coaching staff was there, and their cornerback coach was there, and their cornerback coach was a assistant cornerback coach for the Oregon Ducks in 2018. And back then he was even talking about Javon Holland, about how you guys watch out for this number 8. He's going to be someone you guys are going to hear about in the NFL in the coming years. And it's just funny how that showed. He was talking about he's smart, he has good technique, he's young, but he plays like he's a senior. I remember that was the main quote he said. This guy's a freshman, but he's playing like a senior for us, and you guys are going to hear about him. And I was just like, oh, okay, interesting. You hear about a lot of these little school coaches will, name drop a player that they like and they don't usually pan out. But Javon Holland obviously is panned out. And the fact that his coach back then could see the skill set in him, that gives me even more confidence that he's going to figure things out when he gets older and more experienced.
I love it. I think he's a legitimate candidate for the Cowboys at 44 if he should be there. Let's take one more quick break to tell you guys about Rock Auto. RockAuto.com is a family business serving auto parts to customers online for 20 years. They have everything from engine control modules and brake parts, motor oil, and even new carpet. Whether it's for your classic or your daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks delivered directly to your door. The RockAuto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brands, specifications, and prices that you prefer. Best of all, prices at RockAuto.com are always reliably low, and they're the same for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. So why spend up to twice as much for the same parts? Go to RockAuto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit RockAuto.com today. All right, the last safety that we're going to talk about is a very, very interesting one from the Big Ten. That is Jamar Johnson from Indiana. And again, I think some opinions might be split on this one. Landon, I'm going to start with you on this one. What did you think of Jamar Johnson?
Well, I thought he had good height and weight for his size. Average length is a slightly above average athlete, but I think he supercharges a lot of that with good anticipation. Oddly enough, we picked three guys who I think all are ball hawks. I mean, all these guys do a great job of attacking the football in the air and catching the ball. And obviously that's one of the strengths of Jamar Johnson as well. I was surprised by how solid he is in man coverage. He's comfortable operating with this back to the QB and this from the slot if he needs to be. He's a very good blitzer. I was surprised by that too, because just kind of when you see these guys usually that are kind of, there's lots of Gerard Holloman to his game, but this guy does not have that kind of same fear of physicality. I think it's more just that he is less interested in the run game than he is at everything else. But I mean, he was a solid tackler in the pass game. I think he had a 9% tackle share, which is really good for his team. He sees the field well, but he's still kind of he has good field vision, but I don't think he has the kind of processing or I guess intelligence, experience probably is the word I'm looking for at the position, because you still see him kind of bite on play actions and misdirections, and he gets caught up in the wash and pick routes a lot. I like him a lot, but I don't think I like him as much as those other two guys. I think he's probably a little bit lower on my board if I was going to lay them out. Where does he win? I think he's a ball hawk with some versatility. He's a guy that can be someone who can be a dangerous player in coverage in the back end. But I also think if you need to have him come up and blitz or do some things in the box, he can do that. He's still a very young player at the position. So I guess the questions I have are: can he clean up some of those glaring weaknesses in his game to allow his kind of rarer gifts to shine, that include his ability to attack the football in the air and be kind of a playmaker on defense?
John.
Yeah, I think it was really kind of him to show the best and worst of himself against Ohio State in one game. I mean, if you really want to get a snapshot of him, it's just really that Ohio State game really shows the highs and the lows of him. I think he had, 2 interceptions and 5 missed tackles, and that's really a nice snapshot of him as a player. Landon really said it well. I think his ability in coverage, he's a ball hawk. I think he's another one of these guys. Going through this, he's kind of a late guy that we heard about, but going through, I was like, there's not that many single high safeties in this class. I'm not seeing so many. So that was making me like, you know what, maybe they need to trade up to get Richie Grant to just secure that single high safety that they need. Now you have a Jamar Johnson. I'm like, okay, maybe they can just wait and see if somebody like this can come to them, because I really like his instincts, like Landon said. It's just his tackling technique itself is awful. I've never seen a safety try to tackle somebody with the ribs, but I saw him try to do it like multiple times against Ohio State. That was really interesting. But yeah, just the coverage ability, his ability to play the ball in the air, his ability to make plays on the ball, his ability to read the QB's intentions, I thought was really good. Like Landon said, he's a little bit, I think He's a little aggressive in coverage. That's why you'll see like play action. He'll fly forward and he'll get caught a little bit, or with those route combinations, he'll kind of get caught up underneath. And I think that's easily fixable with more experience and a little bit better coaching, teaching him when to pick his spots, maybe to have a little bit better of a situational awareness of what the opposing offense is going to do based on down and distance, all of those type of things. But I think in the NFL, that's things that'll get cleaned up. It's just the only worry is he gonna ever clean up his tackling technique enough that he's not a liability back there? I think he had the largest missed tackle share among the safeties in this class per PFF, or at least one of the highest that I saw on their draft guide. So I'm just worried about that. But the thing that gives me a little bit more confidence, the reason why he's not like a day 3 guy for me, more of a later day 2 guy, is that he's not afraid to be physical. You see him running in the blocks. You see him play physically. So I think if you can just get him to clean up his tackling technique, he can be a good tackler in the NFL because he's not afraid of that physicality.
Yeah, you guys hit on just about everything here. So I don't need to add too much more. The one thing I would say of the 3 safeties that we're talking about, this is by far the worst athlete. And it's not like he's a bad athlete. He's just a very middling athlete, right?
Yeah,
he ran a 4.58, and that's fine. That's not bad, but it's the agilities where both in the 20 and 30th percentile for shuttle and 3-cone. When you add on the fact that he was a 1-year starter and he's got these tackling issues, I agree. I think he's more of a 3rd-round pick than a 2nd-round pick. But if you're getting this guy at 75 or 99, even, if you're really lucky, that might even be better value, because I think you can find maybe better players at 44, rather than looking at safeties. So it's a fascinating group of guys. And there's some other ones that we didn't even talk about. Andre Sisco, who I don't necessarily think is a day 2 guy, but there's Nasruddin from Florida State. There's some other guys out there that I like. Nasruddin's not really a free safety, but no, let's stack these guys, because I think everybody's going to know the order here. It's Richie Grant, Holland, and then Johnson, right?
100%.
Yeah, I would say here we get the camera. Richie Grant, Holland, and then Johnson. And again, that gap between Holland and Johnson, it's probably around, right? But that's the difference between those other guys being a middle to high 2nd-round pick, and Johnson being a middle to low 3rd-round pick, right? That's kind of where I would stack them. But I agree, real quick, just I would agree that I think getting Johnson at 75
is a better value than the other two.
It's a better value than getting either one of those 2 other guys at 44.
I would agree. Any final thoughts, John, on any one of these 3 safeties?
Yeah, I'd be happy if the Cowboys were, like you said, were able to grab any of the 3. If they were able to grab, Holland or Richie Grant at 44, that'd be great. Or even, when I go into these mock drafts, being able to find Jamar Johnson at that 99 spot, that comp spot, I think that would be the perfect value. Obviously, you can't predict. So at 5, you wonder, is he going to make it? That's where in the team, you find that intel where you think that guy's stock's going to lie. But if they could get him at 99, I think that would be the optimal value for a Jamar Johnson.
All right, that is it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, you can download and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Cowboys. You can follow John at John Owning. You can also follow his work at the Dallas Morning News. You can follow Landon at McCool BCB. And you can follow me at Marcus